It's smelling really nice. Okay, so at this point I am going to add a half teaspoon of freshly ground pepper that I just ground up with my pepper mill, or not my pepper mill, sorry, my pestle and mortar. And you can hear me jingling the spoons in one hand. And a teaspoon of Himalayan rock salt. You can use whatever salt you want. It's really boiling up there, so we'll stir that all in. And I think we're going to need the rest of that broth that we got over there. Just stir it gently. Gently fold it under. Get it stirred in. I think we'll probably end up needing another half or whole teaspoon of salt. We will see. We don't add any of the other herbs until the salt and pepper are added. I just find it easier to taste out the salt and pepper first. The other ones I pretty much know already how much to use. Okay, it's getting pretty thick in there, so I'm just going to add the rest of that jar of broth, and I may need some more liquid yet because I still have those dried mushrooms to go in there, but we shall see. I'm going to let these carrots and turnips cook up a bit more before putting in those mushrooms. Okay, you'll notice that the skillet got magically replaced with a Dutch oven because I am going to run out of space in here. I've also figured out that I definitely need another teaspoon of salt. That first teaspoon hardly did anything for me. It's boiling up nicely here. The carrots and the turnips are starting to tender up. And once they get to be about as tender as the potatoes, I will mix in the potatoes as well. I'm just going to try another carrot here. Ooh, that's hot. Still got a ways to go. What about the... Yep, they're both about the same. Another 5 minutes, I would guess. Okay, we're still not ready for the potatoes, but I'm thinking we are ready for the mushrooms. So they are dried, so they're going to soak up some of that moisture. And I suspect we may end up having to open another jar of chicken broth here. We shall see how it goes. So I'm just going to fold that under. And I'm probably ready for my herbs now. I'll fold those all in as well. Quite a bit of herbage there. Just going to fold that all in. There we go, over and under. A little bit hard to do with just two hands, but not impossible. Alright, we are definitely in need of more liquid, so I opened up another jar of the chicken broth, and we just put in about half of it, and we will see where that gets us. We may need the other half. Yep, we definitely need the rest of the chicken broth. There we go. Okay, the carrots and the turnips are tender enough now. And so we're going to add the other stuff. The potatoes. Get in there. You can see we may even quickly run out of space here. Whoops, I was timing my last step there. That was 5 minutes more to cook the carrots and the turnips. And it was about right. That's going in there. And the can of peas is going in there. And the string beans going in there. And holy moly, we are going to blow the top off the popper already here. Now, this looks like a lot. It is a lot. This is about enough, as I recall, for 4 pies, 4 good-sized pies. So I'm just going to mix that in there gently and I'll get back to you. Okay, I've got it all folded in together, mixed up nicely. It's looking really nice here. Really nice consistency. You can see it's like a very, very thick stew, and that's what I'm looking for. I don't think I'm going to add any cornstarch to this. I believe we have plenty of starch in there. Now, I have taken this in the past, and I may do this with this batch. I think I will actually. I've taken this and canned it, which I will say is technically not safe from everything that I've read. I shouldn't do that, but I do it. There we go. Now, what I'm going to do is just let that come back up to the boil, just very briefly. Then I'm going to turn the heat off and put the cover on and let it set for a bit to thicken. So I'm just waiting. Oh boy, doesn't that smell nice. That's just got a lovely smell to it. Let's give it a taste too. Perfect. That is going to be a good meat pie. Yes, sirree, Bob. Just about perfect. Alright, it's got a good simmer going on most of the surface. Coming out here and here and here and over here and all through here. Should only be another 30 seconds or so and that'll be a full simmer. There, it's coming out now, really coming out here. Right on. Just wait for that to get fully enveloped. Then I'll turn off the heat and put on the lid and let it set for a little bit to thicken up. Alright, I think that's probably good enough. Off goes the heat and on goes the lid. Alright, so you can see that I have decided to can this up. I'm not going to show anything about the procedure at all. I'll show after it's done because it's not considered safe. You can see the meat pie here filling is absolutely lovely. I got the 4 liters and this is about 800 milliliters no, this is almost a liter itself actually, these size containers of the Ziploc ware. So that's 5 pies, each 1 liter jar. I've done this before. I haven't had any problems with it. Like I said, it is not considered safe, so I'm not showing anything. I'll show after they're done. That's about it. But the reason I like doing it this way is I can make a huge batch like I just did, and I can just open a jar whenever I want to have meat pie, make my pie crust, and away we go, we're in business. So there we go, I have my 4 jars of meat pie filling. I can open one whenever I want to make meat pie. Like I said, this is not considered safe, so I am not showing any of the details whatsoever. And that's that. Okay, and this is what it looks like out of the oven. You'll notice the crust is fairly brown looking. That's because I used whole wheat flour. I didn't include the crust recipe because I was trying out a new recipe this time around actually. It turned out reasonably well, though it was a little bit difficult to roll out, so you see I had to piece together the top part here. There's not quite enough gravy in here for me, so what I'm going to do when I open the jars is I'll make a little gravy on the side, and I actually have a jar of drippings from the chicken that I'm going to use to do that. Otherwise, the flavor is very good, absolutely beautiful aroma. You can see here I have it served up. In my house you can't have meat pie without mustard pickles, and these ones are homemade, of course. I made them in the fall 2 years ago, I believe. In the fall of this year I will be getting very low, and so I will show you how to make mustard pickles. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention about the crust that I'm using here is that I made it, the lard I used is actually my own home rendered pork fat. So it's made with a jar, or about 100 milliliters actually, of home rendered pork fat. Now I'm going to sit down and enjoy this wonderful meat pie.